Welcome to week 4. This is Andy with some of my best Sunday NFL bets. We got a full slate of games. Buys haven't even started. We got one London game, a whole slew of 1 o'clock games, and then a couple of stragglers over there at 4 o'clock. Once again, 4 o'clock games that make you just go, come on. Who's scheduling these games? Definitely not somebody looking out for our See, this is why it's great to be a sports bettor. Okay, you want to make the Cowboys play the Patriots at 4 o'clock? You want to show us the Niners versus the Cardinals? Then we have ways to make it interesting, and that is called same-game parlays. I haven't scratched one out all year. I mean, that's a interesting term, scratching one out. But I like that, scratching one out. Scratch a pirate's voice. Parlay.
Parlay.
I'm going to have one for you. I know I haven't given you a ton yet. Theoretically, when you give picks on a video, anything and everything can be
Parlay.
We'll get to that in just a second. Right after I tell you about something I did for you guys, and by I did this for you guys means I didn't do this for you guys, but it is rather exciting. I told you early season you got to take advantage of these great promotions. Well, the big one's back. Bet 365. Bet 1, get 365. You bet $1 and you're getting $365 to use across the board on Bet 365. And just make sure you're over 21, none of this fake ID stuff. And it's not available in every single state, so, read the specifics in the description of this video. It will tell you what states Bet365 is available in. It's got a link for U.S. users, a link for Canadian users, and a link from, I don't know, I got to go to a wedding in St. Martin. There's probably a link for you somewhere down there as well. But Bet 1, get 365. But if you got a gambling problem or somebody you know has a gambling problem, call or text 1-800-GAMBLER. I didn't know that there was a text feature, or I would have told you guys to utilize that. This is a text world, so text yourself a 1-800-GAMBLER, and a representative will, help you out, I guess, via text. I hope they get back to you quicker than some of the girls that I would meet out there. Oh, you text somebody, they're getting back in 3 weeks. But fortunately for you, I'm not like one of them. You get your picks before Sundays, and you get your sniffs before Mondays. So looking at this slate, I know what happened last week. I chose the worst team on this slate. I chose the Broncos to cover. Right philosophy, wrong rats. Rats were scurrying all over the field on Sunday. You had Dallas lose outright to Arizona. You had Baltimore lose at home to a backup quarterback in Indianapolis. We had the Jaguars lose at home to Houston, who had no members of their offensive line active, winless team. There were rats scurrying around, and I picked the embarrassment of a rat. But do you guys remember week 2? What do I do? Yeah, that's right. I come for revenge. Not only on you, not only for Miss Lippy, but any teams that may have screwed me the week before. And if I don't like the next week bet, then maybe I'll carry it over. But it just so happens that I like the Buffalo Bills this week, -2.5 at home against the Miami Dolphins. Miami up in Buffalo, they've struggled up there. They've come close in a couple of games, but Josh Allen is 9-2 against Miami over the course of his career, although I don't really put too much on that. To me, what's important? How's he been versus Mike McDaniels? How's he been versus Tua? He's 4-1 versus Tua. He's undefeated against Miami at home. I think in his whole career, I think he's 6-0. So I'm going to go with that. I understand how hot Miami is, literally and figuratively. But the way Buffalo plays them, they have a defense that's playing very well. I don't think it's going to be very easy for Tua out there. Obviously, a very hostile environment. And Tyreek Hill has not done well up there. He hasn't done so well up in Buffalo other than the one game that was like, nobody was in the stadium. So I'm going to take Buffalo -2.5. And because Tyreek Hill never seems to go off up there, what happens if he doesn't go off? Yes, that's right. Jalen Waddle, we took him week 2. This is an alternating game. I'm going to take him week 4. I'll take the over on Jalen Waddle's receiving yardage. Then looking at some of these other games, we saw the Cincinnati Bengals kind of get on the right track. They got that first win under them. This looks like the Bengals of last. Slow starters, 0-2. Then they weaseled the win against Zach Wilson and the Jets. Or I don't know if that was Mike White. I can't really remember. But they're starting to turn it around. Does that mean I'm going to take the Bengals -2.5? No, because that's a stake in the woods line staring at me. -2.5, Bengals versus Tennessee, who's nobody's excited about. I'm not taking that, but there are things that I like within that game. Number one, week 2, who did we take? We took Jalen Waddle, who's another guy we took after his week 1 catchless performance. That was T. Higgins, and he paid us out nicely. T. Higgins had a bunch of crucial drops, played awful on Monday night. I'm looking for him to bounce back against the most beatable secondary that there is. I mean, one of the most beatable secondaries. There is a beautiful alignment for this game in terms of pass catchers and quarterback, and that is you have an elite run-stopping defense, you have a bad running back in terms of efficiency with Joe Mixon, and you have receivers who can exploit a bad secondary, which is what the Titans have. So I think Burrow's going to sit back there and just get it out of his hands quickly, like you've been seeing him do all year, but last game we saw a little bit more progress. I'm going to take the over on T. Higgins. I'm going to take the over on Joe Burrow completions because of that calf and because of that run defense. So I believe he's just going to sit back there, mostly in shotgun, and just get it out of his hands and distribute. I'm going to take the over on his completions. I'm also going to take the over on Derrick Henry's rushing yards. I understand that people think, he's 29, he's always over the hill. He had brutal matchups the last couple of weeks. And this is a matchup that can be exploited. We saw Chubb get to 100 on them in a little over a half. And unfortunately for Henry, brutal matchup against Cleveland last week. I'm going to bet at home against Cincy, who you can run against. We just didn't get to see it last week because they handed the ball off like 8 times total to Kieran Williams. Obviously, Henry's a different kind of player than Kieran. I believe they're going to be able to run it, so I'll take the over on his rushing yards. And you wanted that same game parlay? We're going to take the over on Burrow's completions. We're going to take the over on T. Higgins receiving yardage. If you want to get ballsy, you can take 75 plus. And we're going to take the over on Derrick Henry's rushing yards. If you want to get ballsy, you can take 75 plus. You add those all together, you're obviously going to get yourself a fresh bet. Another guy that I like, George Pickens, in a matchup indoors, Houston against a beatable secondary. There's still no Deontay Johnson. I think he's set up nicely, and his yardage total is in the high 50s. In my opinion, it should be a little bit higher than that, low 60s, mid 60s, maybe even upper 60s. They don't have many threats there until Deontay Johnson comes back. So he should be getting a considerable amount of targets, and I think he should be able to make the most of them. He's also one of those dynamic guys where one catch can take you to that over. So I'm going to take the over on George Pickens receiving yards. I'm going to go back to Kieran Williams. Remember that Monday night? You can call me Mr. Monday Night because I was firing on all cylinders with both of those games. I didn't even know what Kieran Williams' receiving yards were, but I took them because he plays 99% of the snaps. And I know they usually have a couple design screens, the same way the Rams always do, the same way they will again. Now, get this. He had 7 targets in that game and only ended up with 2 catches, but still cleared that over. I'm also going to go over once again on him. So give me the over on Kieran Williams' receiving yards. The next pick that I'm going to take, if you want me to go sides, I'm going to go with Cleveland at home against Baltimore. Right now, it's hovering around minus. I would prefer for Deshaun to be completely healthy, and I'll just take them at -2.5. But now we might be getting a discount on it because he says he's going to play, but the spread is only around -1 or something. I look at Lamar and the Ravens. I just think that's a team that fans always overvalue ever since that MVP season. They lost last week to a backup quarterback, a team in Indianapolis who had the worst pass defense. It's even worse than Tennessee's, had 2 rookie corners starting, and they couldn't exploit that matchup and lost to Gardner Minshew. Some of their wins before that, they struggled with Houston week 1, and then the crusty calf Burrow, they beat them in week 2. So I'm not that impressed with their play. They're not going to have Beckham. They're not going to have Bateman. And the defense of Cleveland is straight up elite. Top 5, right up there with the Niners, with the Cowboys. They're vicious, and they crushed last week Henry was able to do nothing. They engulfed Tannehill. They should honestly be 3-0. They destroyed the Steelers in Pittsburgh as well. And you saw Watson actually play kind of well last week. I don't even think he needs to play that well. That's how good the defense is. Jerome Ford hit that first bet for us last week, the over on receiving. Well, how about this week? We're going to take the over on rushing because he's going to find sledding a lot easier to come by against the Ravens opposed to those Titans who have that, curtain up where no one can run on them. So I'll take the over on Jerome Ford. And the Cleveland Browns money line. If you want, you can roll those together in a same game parlay if you so choose. And then lastly, I'm going to take a look at that London game. I guess that's how we do things. Are we going to talk about Sunday Night Football first? Nope, we're going to talk about the London game last, and that is the Falcons, and they're playing the Jacksonville Jaguars, who sorely need a win. 2 home losses in a row. That would suck if this is designated their home game, so they get 3 straight home games. You can't lose 3 straight home games, even if one's in London. I know favorites have a very great record in London. I don't remember what it is off the top of my head. But even with that aside, I like Jacksonville to pull out a win in this game. I would prefer them if you need to buy them down a little bit to -2.5. But if I buy them down, I'm going to give you a couple of things that I like. Number 1, Calvin Ridley had a tough drop last week. I still think he's one of the elite wide receivers in this league. So I think he should be able to hit his over on receiving. I also weirdly think the ghost of Kyle Pitts is going to hit his over. Something about London. He tore it up there last time. Something tells me he's going over. Even maybe alternate receiving 50 plus is I think it's over plus 200 or something like that. So I like the Jaguars to win. Or if you want to take a -2.5, I like the over on Calvin Ridley receiving yards and the over on Kyle Pitts receiving yards. And that is what I have for you for this Sunday, week 4 of the 2023 NFL season. Good luck to you. Better luck to me. Make sure you're subscribed to this Odd Shopper channel here. You know how it goes. You got to like this video. You got to comment on this video. Then when you're done, call your dad. Tell him you love him. Say, oh, thank you for all those. Thank you for taking me to hockey growing up. Thank you for taking me to football growing up. Thank you for giving me tickets to watching The Hangover. I was under 18. I really appreciate it. And then after that, go watch Francess and Friends that we had yesterday. I had Nick Lepre back on where we were talking about the Dolphins. He got to make fun of me. I was talking to Laffy and different bets and different games. It was a good time, so definitely check that out. And then I will be back with you tomorrow to talk Monday Night Football bets. I will see you guys then. Take it easy.